I apologize for my hair, it's kind of a mess right now, so I'm just gonna put this beanie on. Hey guys, how you doing? There's this film called We Are Still Here, directed by a man named Ted Geoghegan, and it's a movie, it's a horror film. It came out last year, I want to say. The film is about a husband and a wife who are an older couple, and they are moving to this house in New England, I want to say. They're moving into like this very old house, and the reason why they're moving is because they're trying to, they're grieving over the death of their son, and he died by, I honestly don't even remember. All I know is that he's dead. The son's dead, so they're sad, and they're moving into a house, I guess. But this is a horror film, which means that there is something very wrong going on in this house, and yeah, it turns out that the house there's something wrong with it, there's spooky stuff going on, and it's spooky. Basically, there's this evil presence that wakes up every 30 years in the house and demands a sacrifice. They need to do all these sacrifices so then that way they can go back into the underworld or wherever the hell they came from, and they can come back 30 years later and demand another sacrifice, I guess. It's just kind of a thing that works, and apparently the whole town is aware of this, and of course, they're moving into this new town, and, they're all like, oh, don't go in that house, stop living in that house, it's spooky, it's haunted, and, apparently it is just a very, 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 very weird coincidence that this family is moving into this brand new house where it is haunted, and every 30 years there are ghosts in it. And, it's just a very strange coincidence that, like, the day they move in is the day where, they demand a sacrifice within that 30-year span. So, that part was a little confusing to me. This film was praised by people and critics, fans alike, critics and fans alike. This movie was praised. Everybody loved this film. They called this, the second best horror movie of 2015 along with It Follows. They said it's, like, up there as, like, one of the best horror films of the year. And, yeah, I personally thought it was okay. I did not think it was as great as people are saying it is. Definitely not as great, as, people are hyping it up to be. And, yeah, this movie has a score of 95% on Rotten Tomatoes right now. 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. Like, that's way too high in my opinion. Is this movie, 95% on Rotten Tomatoes good? Hell no, it is absolutely not that good. But the biggest compliment I could give this movie is that it's decent, and it's it's kind of a nice throwback to, like, the more traditional horror, I guess I could say. It's not one of those really dumb generic horror movies that we get out nowadays. It's kind of, yeah, like a throwback to, the old traditional horror with, like, ooh, there's something spooky in this haunted house, and, yeah, I mean, that part I kind of liked. The whole concept of it I think is pretty cool. But for the strangest reason, I just could not get into this movie. I was bored halfway through. There was not anything happening at all, in the first hour of this movie, and, this is a very short film. It's only, like, 80-something minutes, it's very, very short, and, the first hour, there's nothing happening, and I was a little bit bored. I was just kind of like, okay, I kind of wanted it to end, to be honest with you. I was just kind of waiting for it to end, and, nothing was really grasping my attention that much, The movie looked fine, it was a very good-looking movie. That's another compliment I could give it. The acting was fine, although I didn't really care for the characters too much in this film, they're not the most likable characters in the world. Like, they're very kind of bland to me, they're just very bland characters. I didn't think, there was a single one that I really was like, no, please don't die, I care about you and stuff. The one thing, and this is probably the best thing I liked about this film, is the ending. I mentioned how the first hour of this film bored me. The last 20 minutes, which is the movie's entire, runtime, the last 20 minutes of this film I absolutely loved. I loved the ending to this movie. Because that, of course, is when shit hits the fan, and there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. It's, like, super crazy, and, there's all this. It's a bloodbath. Like, there was so much blood and gore, like, everywhere, and I was loving it. I was loving every second of the ending of this film. I loved it. I thought, it was great. It was fantastic pacing. Just, everything was just. Huge props for the ending, though, because it's just a bloodbath, just so much blood, and, like, in a good way, too, It's a good, think that there's an excessive amount of blood in this movie, because I just kind of wanted something to happen, because nothing was happening in the rest of the film. There was also some very awesome practical effects in this film, with the blood and gore, this dismemberment, the mutilation, just everything, just the practical effects were amazing in this film. Why can I not talk today? In a lot of ways, this kind of reminded me of a Ty West film, and if you guys are familiar with Ty West, he creates movies that are very extremely slow, they're very slow burning films, they take a long time to, build up to the final climax, the big ending, and it's usually only the ending where, like, just stuff happens. The rest of the movie is just building up to that one ending. And that one ending is usually worth it in Ty West movies. This movie just kind of reminded me of a Ty West movie that really isn't as good as a Ty West movie, if that makes sense. This movie just didn't really have that style of, like The Innkeepers or The House of the Devil. Those movies I actually really like, but this one just kind of seemed like it was meh, like I said, it was decent. I'm not saying it's a bad film at all. It really is not a bad film. The ending definitely, I wouldn't say it paid off, for the rest of the film. I thought the ending was, a very fun watch. Definitely watch this movie just for the ending, but personally, it just, I can't really see myself, coming back to watch this movie ever again. It's just a bit too bland for me, I don't really understand, the whole hype around this movie. I think it's a good movie, but it's just not as great as everybody else is saying it is. And what makes this movie so amazing? I have no idea. I really don't know. It's a good movie. It's just not, the amazing, spectacular horror film that people are making it out to be. So, would I recommend this film? Yes, I would. But don't expect, a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes good. It's not that great. But, yeah. Overall, We Are Still Here is a pretty decent horror film. It's not bad. It's nothing great. It's just a good one-time watch for me. And overall, I'm probably going to give the film a solid 3 out of 5. I thought it was alright. Like I said, I can't really see myself going back to watching this movie. It's just kind of like a, one-time deal for me. But, I am kind of glad I watched it. I guess, it's something new, something a little bit refreshing that, is kind of like a throwback to the old traditional horror. So yeah, that was kind of nice. And yeah, like I said, I love the ending. The ending is great. I loved every second of it, but the rest of the movie is just kind of whatever. But yeah, guys, anyways, those are my thoughts on We Are Still Here. Thank you guys so much for watching my review. I am Jacob Palacio, and I will see you guys later.